just sign you. I think she's got one. Yeah, I'm good. Because I talked to him over the phone and I just signed his name for him. Sure. Excuse me, would everybody please be seated? And if security could close the door, we're about to begin. And if everybody could please silence their cell phones. I think they're about ready. Alex, I believe. Whoop. Always wait for Reverend Jakes to sit down. Yeah, that's correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the March 11th, 2020 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine will not be here today. Ms. Alvarez.
Here.
Judge Chevrolet.
Here.
Reverend Jakes.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with 6 members of the committee present, sir.
Our first order of business today is the approval of the committee minutes of February 10, 2020. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Abstain.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy?
Good morning, I'm Jeremy Pye, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be going over the results for January. With regard to January revenues, we see fare box totals up by $800,000 to budget. We see passes at the budgeted marks. So we see fare and pass totals up by $800,000 for the month of January. Again, a nice trend that's been different than what we've seen in prior months. So again, that was bolstered by the fact that we had some very good weather in January vis-a-vis last year, but also just over the longer term trend. Reduced fare subsidy is flat to budget. As we've talked about in the 2020 budget process, we went ahead and assumed that the 50% haircut to the reduced fare subsidy that's been taking place by the state since 2015 would continue through the 2020 budget cycle. So we went ahead and budgeted that. That does not mean that we're foregoing those funds in our efforts with the legislature downstate. We continue to make it known that we need those funds for the operations of the system. But again, from budgeting perspective, we went ahead and baked that into our assumptions. So again, we're flat to budget. Non-fearbox totals are down due to spread and also the impact of the new state tax on parking lots that went into effect January 1st. But again, due to the increases that we'll see taking effect in the next couple of months, we'll start to see that reverse in the second half of the year. So overall, we're positive about $600,000 for the month of January on our revenues. So again, a nice start to the year, and again, a substantially different place than we started last year for January.
So, Jeremy,
Yes.
before you leave this page, just curious in terms of looking ahead to, I don't know if you looked at February numbers, but with the All-Star game being in Chicago, I'm saying, because you're right, I mean, for January, this is a great start, but I'm hoping that the numbers in February will continue this trend. I'm just curious if you've had a chance to look at those February numbers.
Correct. We don't have final numbers yet, but we do see the trend. We did see the trend continue in February. So again, we anticipate better numbers, definitely better numbers than we saw last year for February. But again, we should see a little bit of tailwind in the first quarter in general, just because of where we've been with regard to the weather. Not only vis-a-vis last year, but again, like the longer-term trend that we look at when we do the budgeting process. We saw free rides up about 700,000 rides compared to January of 2019, and again, bolstered by the better weather in 2020 here. On the expense side of the house, we see labor down about 1.9 million. 1.4 of that is due to the settlement of a retro payment with regard to the control center contract negotiation. So again, that's a one-time, retro payment that was made in relation to that agreement. So again, the bulk of that is due to that instance that is a non-recurring instance. So materials, fuel, power, security services, all up to the budgeted marks. We see other expenses slightly down, but again, that's just due to timing of some of the expenses vis-a-vis closing the books on 2019. So overall, we see total expenses down to budget about 1.6 million. Again, 1.4 of that is due to the one-time retro payment. So again, a much better start than what we saw in 2019 for January. Net against the revenues, we're down about $1 million, year to date or for January here. So again, it's not irregular to see negative numbers for January, February, March. So again, this is following more of a historic form, if not slightly above that so far.
Jeremy,
Yes.
before you leave this page, you still got 400,000 on the calendar, so 4 million, as you mentioned, need to deal with CBA agreement that you just reached with the control center. The other 400,000.
So the other 400,000 is primarily overtime. Again, in the winter months, not uncommon to see some overtime being accrued. Even though the weather was much better than last year, it's still winter in Chicago. So again, not irregular to see overtime, particularly in the winter months here.
Do you see that as a continuing trend, or do you think we need to go back and adjust the budget so that you don't have this major?
Yeah, so we'll continue to assess that. I think that you will see, as we do historically, see some overtime accrued in the first quarter. Again, just dealing with additional overtime related to weather and things like that. Again, much better than last year, but again, it's there were weather events throughout the first quarter of this year. With regard to the three commodities that we purchased, fuel, power, and natural gas, we're fully locked in for those three purchases Fuel through 2021, we are moving and we'll be bringing to the board shortly, an RFP for additional fuel purchases in the outer years, so that we can continue to lock in at very favorable prices on fuel. Power and natural gas were locked in through either 2024 or 2022 respectively. I'll go back and check what month, but it's through the 2021, period. Yeah, I'll double check on what month it is because they do break it up a little differently, but it is for the 2021 calendar year. Yeah, so that is our intent. That's where the RFP will come into play, that we'll be bringing before the board next month, so that we can go ahead and secure additional purchases for 2022 and then beyond. Typically the fuel market doesn't allow significant forward purchases because just the way that market operates vis-a-vis the other two markets, because it's frankly very volatile, as we're seeing right now in the market. So you usually don't get a lot of forward opportunity the way that you do in some of the other markets. But we do want to take advantage of whatever forward purchases that we can do for calendar year 2022 for that very reason, that prices are exceptionally low right now and look to be, based on the indications from the market, look like they'll stay that way at least here for the next little bit.
Just to follow, I noticed, I think it was Monday, it got down into $30 a barrel. Were we able to take advantage of any of that?
So we do take advantage of that in the fact that we still buy 15% of our purchases at the spot pricing rates. So we are being able to take advantage of those exceptionally low, those low prices. Again, that's part of the reason why we don't lock in on the entirety of the expected usage for the year on any of the commodities. Power, again, is a little different, but again, we've been able to take advantage of that for the 15% of the usage that we do on a monthly basis.
Just to give the board an example, so when you put together the 2020 budget, what did you kind of lock in for that? I just want to see the delta, the difference between $30-some a barrel versus what we locked in.
Sure. I can circle back to you with those numbers. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2020. Jeremy.
And I'm joined by Stina Fish, who's the manager for business development.
Good morning, Stina Fish, Manager of Business Development. Today I present for your consideration a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, DCASE. We've been doing this co-promotion with DCASE or its predecessor since 1992. The total trade value of this year's co-promotional agreement is $855,800. This co-promotional agreement covers 13 DCASE festivals and events taking place in 2020, including the Year of Chicago Music, Taste of Chicago, Air and Water Show, and Jazz Festival. DCASE will promote CTA at each of these events in various ways, including on signage at events, in email newsletters, and with travel information on the event websites. CTA will also be invited to showcase the community bus at pertinent events and festivals, including Taste of Chicago and Chicago Air and Water Show. In exchange, CTA will provide interior car card space on bus and rail for DCASE to promote its events. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions, please? Help me understand, okay, how do you check that we're getting, okay, what is the best deal, okay, with the City of Chicago?
So we again have had a long-standing relationship with the city, whether it's through this or 2FM CoPro. So again, we ensure that our advertising is within their promotional materials, and Stina and her team do that. Whether it's the pamphlets that are handed out for the various events. We also have started including an embedded link to their websites so that folks that are attending those events can link directly back to the CTA's website so that they can purchase fair media to go to and from those events. So again, we ensure that we're in the promotional materials, that when the opportunity is there for booths and things like that, that we're also represented within those types of events. And again, it's worked out well for us to have that additional new link back to the fair media so that we can, again, get people's cards trued up or have them purchase new fair media so that they can attend those events and get that fair media in their hands before the event starts.
All these events are managed, okay, by the city of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And we check, okay, that is right price.
Yeah, so it has to do with the rate cards for both events. So again, we're trading off what the value of the car cards would be at a market rate of within our system, and then what the pricing is for the events on their respective platforms, whether it be in their promotional materials or the vendor area or whatnot. So again, we're looking at the rate cards for both and ensuring that there's an equal value for both us and the city.
And if an event is canceled, okay, who takes the hit?
So, again, right now we'll continue to assess that. We'll have to work out a plan as to, again, kind of equal trade, because this is, again, an equal trade co-promotion between the two entities. So if an event were to not happen, we would ensure that we get something that's related, again, at a later time so that we would get the equal value that we're putting in on our system.
Events that are traded, as long as the total trade value doesn't exceed what's set in the ordinance.
You handle that?
I have a question. With regards to the promotions that we do at the events, do we promote the 7-day pass, the 30-day pass, and types of promotions that we do there?
Yeah, so again, kind of linking back to the website, obviously the 1-day and the 3-day are geared towards folks that are more out of town visitors or out of kind of the regular service area. For the 7-day and for the 30-day, those options are available. But again, for these smaller events, weekend events, it's really kind of the 1 and 3-day for folks coming in from out of town. And then again, just reminding folks that are regular customers, if they are, regular business week customers, that, those 7-day and 30-day may be a better option for them, particularly during the height of the festival season to switch over.
Is it on a flyer, or what do we do? How do we,
Through our website,
just through the website?
Yes.
So at the event, though, what do we give out?
through the, so Brian's, so we have the community bus. I don't know if Brian Steele is here with us this morning, but I may ask him to come up and he can kind of walk through what they do with the community bus and the promotions that they do at the various events.
Good morning, Brian Steele, VP Communications and Marketing. A couple years ago, we launched the CTA Community Bus, which is a repurposed bus that we've gutted the interior and made it a real welcoming venue for customers. We put in video screens, we put in mobile phone chargers, we put out information about CTA, and we deploy the Community Connection bus to probably about 40 different events and activities across the city throughout the year. It's really a great way for us to have a presence at large-scale community gatherings, spread information about CTA, encourage people to take public transit. And as Jeremy mentioned, we will have it festivities from the spring basically through the late fall. Occasionally, we've even deployed it for special events during the off months, like the Women's March early in the year.
Yeah, so my question was.
Yeah, I gotta say, we're not answering your question. I think the issue, the bottom line is, yes, we do promote the 1-day and 3-day passes. We don't sell them at the event themselves, but we use it through our website. We promote it through other media or material that we may use connected to the event itself. And it's certainly an area that we can take a closer look at in terms of, are there more opportunities for us to promote that specific pass usage, particularly for the weekend events when they come up.
Right, I mean, I think every chance we can get, especially with the 7 days and 30 days, are so wow.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think we still have time. Obviously, these are events that are occurring throughout the summer and into years, so the question of what the actual messaging is as part of the co-promotion can certainly address this issue and create the opportunity for us to promote that as part of it. So I think it's something that we'll incorporate into whatever material that's being prepared that allows us to basically make that point as part of that activity.
And we currently.
Is our people or is
We certainly run what messaging gets put up on CTA system, and we certainly are involved in what they're going to say about CTA and their messaging. So yes, they actually create their own material for their promotions, but we certainly have the ability to weigh in on what they'll say about CTA as part of those promotions, and so we'll have that conversation with DCASE as part of the overall effort for the entire season.
And we do currently have digital ads promoting past products on the CTA. You'll see them in car cards and on digital ads in the system as well.
But you do not sell on site.
No, the logistics of selling on site require us to be able to secure, the fair media. Obviously, it has value. We rarely do that except for really, really big events like the Gay Pride Parade and things like that. We're really doing it more as a way to deal with managing the crowds that are coming in and out and helping them move much more efficiently, in which we want them to have the pass product, the 1-day pass or something in advance of their coming back into our system. So for those type of events, we'll have something set up remotely to deal with it, but the cost and expense of doing it on an ongoing basis is not worth it for what we ultimately end up selling in terms of the fair media.
This ordinance has no commitment financially to us doing activities.
Correct. It's again utilizing unsold ad space within our system and taking advantage of not only getting advertising opportunities within their portfolio of marketing materials, but also as Brian had indicated, it's just the promotion of these events in and of themselves drive folks back to transit to take transit to these events. So we kind of get a double effect in that we get to promote within their marketing materials, but we're also promoting the fact that there's weekend events. So don't just ride transit to work on the weekdays, but also take it to these special events that are hosted throughout the festival season.
Jeremy, if, and God forbid that this COVID-19 would go into the summer, but if it does, and events are canceled, such as St. Patrick's Day parades been canceled, if Taste of Chicago is canceled, things of that nature, then is there an adjustment that will be made?
Correct. So we'll be able to shift to other events, again, getting a reciprocal benefit, on something else that we don't typically participate in. But again, we'll have to kind of see how this plays out. But we will be looking for other opportunities to novate some of these events that may get canceled over to something else.
I'm going to talk later in the board meeting about the coronavirus and the impact it's having on CTA. As I've discussed with you all individually, it's a very fluid situation. None of us are really sure in terms of what's going to happen around special events or anything like that. And so everything that we're dealing with right now is sort of with this overlay of it could be subject to change based on the reality of what may be decided or not decided on a much broader level. I think it's safe to say that we're all sort of in a period of uncertainty right now about any long-term planning around activities because we don't really know yet sort of what the ultimate impact of the coronavirus is going to be.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing the execution of a rider to a license agreement with Cardtronics USA, Inc. Jeremy,
Again, I'm Stina Fish, Manager of Business Development.
I'm sorry.
And I present for your consideration a rider to the existing ATM license agreement with Cardtronics, allowing Cardtronics to install an ATM at CTA's 74th Street garage. A license agreement with Cardtronics that lasts 5 years with one 2-year option was approved by the CTA board in February 2019. The license agreement gave Cardtronics the right to install ATMs at 88 CTA locations, including rail stations and 2 employee locations. It is a 5-year agreement with one 2-year option. Under this license agreement, additional locations may be added upon mutual agreement. Staff at 74th Street Garage have requested an ATM at their work location, and Cardtronics has agreed to install. The new ATM location will provide an amenity to approximately 620 bus operators reporting to the 74th Street Bus Garage and additional CTA staff visiting the site for training purposes. Cardtronics will pay CTA a percentage of gross transaction revenue, projected to be about $1,000 annually, plus a flat fee of $9.55 per month for the electricity used. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I was reading this, I'm like, how can I get that deal? $9.95 for electricity for a month? How did we come up with less than $10 a month in electricity used for an ATM?
So it is, again, working with folks here at CTA and also kind of industry standards on what the assumed usage rates would be for the power draw for the ATM. And again, I think that this is what you typically see.
Is this the first rollout?
No, this is actually just an add-on. So the contract that we brought to the board back in February, it was a little different than the one that we had with PNC for the other half of the whole ATM portfolio throughout the system. We noticed that from time to time there may be new areas. While the ATMs are pretty ubiquitous throughout the system, there are a few locations that still don't have them. So in this contract, we added the option to be able to add new ATMs to it if there's demand there. And again, we heard from the 74th Garage folks that they wanted this ATM.
600 employees, it makes sense. But in
Yes.
light of the fact that we've got some history, I think it would, be helpful to go back and take a look. That seems kind of low in terms of $9.95 a month in terms of electricity use. So I would just ask you and the staff, go back, take a look at that.
Sure.
In other locations, we can easily get usage and payments since we've been doing this at other locations. That number, that just jumped out at me myself for a month or 30 days. That's...
Sure, we'll go back and review that.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a permanent discounted rate at the authorities Cumberland and Rosemont Park and Rides. Jeremy.
Good morning, I'm Jeremy
Dina,
Fine, your Chief
Dina,
Financial
sure.
Officer, and I'm happy today to present for your consideration a proposal to implement a permanent discounted multi-day rate for parking at Cumberland and Rosemont Park and Rides. On September 1st in 2019, with the approval of the CTA board, the CTA began a pilot offering a $10 daily rate for customers staying more than 24 hours and booking in advance online. The discounted rate is intended to capture customers traveling to O'Hare Airport, and the pilot also included general marketing efforts such as a banner at the Cumberland Garage promoting access to O'Hare via the Blue Line and utilizing internet search words around Chicago airport parking. During the pilot, the multi-day users and revenue to CTA for multi-day sales have increased both at Rosemont and Cumberland. At Cumberland, multi-day users increased from 150 customers each month to 337 on average. At Rosemont, the multi-day users increased from 280 customers each month to 746 on average. Total new revenue at the for the CTA at both lots from multi-day users during the 5-month pilot period was over $72,000. Due to the success of the pilot, the staff recommends making the discounted multi-day rate permanent at both Rosemont and Cumberland. The recommended permanent rate is $11 a day, which will also cover the new state of Illinois parking tax of 6% that went into effect on January 1st, 2020. If recent trends continue in the multi-day sales at Rosemont and Cumberland, staff estimates that CTA would receive over $175,000 in new multi-day sales revenue in 2020. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah, just one, I mean, highly successful pilot return. Ordinance. Have you looked at other locations, maybe like out at Midway or events, locations where we're having conferences or something, we can reduce the rates and we can also see this?
Exactly. We are taking a look, not only down towards Midway, but also just, as you indicate, other events, if there's other things that are happening around some of the other parking facilities that we have, should we try to start doing this on a rolling basis. So, again, we'll continue to evaluate that with our parking advisor, and then, if there's a proposal, we'll be bringing that back to the board.
Are people currently at the parking locations that we have, are they currently able to buy like 7-day or a month or something ahead of time? Or is it individually
For parking,
per parking?
most of our lots have monthly parking available.
Most of them do, so we're already doing some of that at most.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have you to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance approving the authority's 2016-2018 Title VI Program Triennial Report and revised Chicago Transit Authority service standards and policies and authorizing submittal to the Federal Transit Administration. Tom and Mike.
Good morning, Directors. I'm Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer.
Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer.
Every 3 years, the CTA is required to submit a Title VI program, plan, and report to the Federal Transit Administration. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits a provider of public transit from discriminating against customers in its programs or activities on the basis of race, color, or national origin. The Title VI report contains information regarding public notifications, the complaint procedure, our language assistance plan, and the provision of service and amenities to ensure equitable provision. This report covers the time period from 2016 to 2018. Importantly, the report, which was jointly created by the Service Planning Department and the EEO unit, contains no findings of disparate impact. I will turn it over to Mike Connolly to describe the service planning section of the report.
As Tom mentioned, we do an analysis on all of the CTA service looking for disparate impacts on minorities. We examine passenger load levels on both bus and rail service. We look at on-time performance comparatively. We look at actual headways and the actual frequency and the distribution of equipment throughout the system itself. We also examine any implementation of fare changes that occur during the 3-year period. The results of this deep analysis included in your packets as a part of this Title VI report is that there are no disparate impacts or any Title VI violations. Staff are requesting that the board consider adoption of the ordinance before you, which would approve the report, amend the service standards, and authorize submittal to the Federal Transit Administration.
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Are we sort of industry leader in this space, or is this pretty, you take a look at some of the other large transit agencies?
Yeah, so we, this report comes out every 3 years, and every 3 years, as you may know, Chairman, we have a triennial audit from the FTA. The FTA will come in and audit, and part of what they audit is our Title VI program. And what they have indicated to us on the completion of this audit is that CTA really does Title VI in the way that it's envisioned, in that we think of it from the beginning, right? It's incorporated into all of the decision-making up front rather than an analysis that happens at the back end of it, right? And it's much easier to make sure that you're compliant if you're incorporating this in all of your decision-making up front.
The way I put it is that the Title VI regulations and the Title VI guidance are in our DNA, and they go through every decision that we make on a day-to-day basis, week to week, or month to month, about any provision of service or any changes that we make. So that is something that the federal government does recommend to everyone, and several of the things that we have done have been recommended to other agencies as best practices to in this area.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
Second.
Thank you. Our final order of business is the review of 3 purchase and sales award recommendations. Tom, JP.
Good morning, Directors. I'm Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer. I'm sitting in this morning for Ellen, who has a scheduled absence today.
First, contract numbers B1 and B2. Any questions?
I've got a question on, both B1 and B2. Maybe you can help me with this. So I was just, again, looking at the DBE percentages. Just curious, where are these items coming from? And where do the trucks pick them up from? Are they bringing, I was looking at the locations of some of the trucking firms, Houston, Texas. I think I've got another one here in New Jersey. So just curious as to, is the material coming in by train, they pick them up, or they're bringing them from the states where they're hitting?
I'm gonna have Bill answer this.
So on B1, predominantly these are coming directly from the foundries that are rolling the rail or the bars for us. When we small batch them, they come in on trucks. So a typical truckload of rail is about 30 sticks of rail, which is about 600 feet of track, which is a pretty significant amount of rail. We don't do a ton of mass rail renewal unless it's a major construction project. From a maintenance standpoint, it's single piece replacement or a couple piece replacement. When we do order for larger quantities, we have a direct access to our warehouse facility down at 63rd and Calumet to the freight railroad, and we'll actually bring it in on gondolas, and it will actually come in on freight. So if we do buy big quantity rail for major renewal, we tend to actually bring it in because it's cheaper to bring it in on freight from those foundries than it is to try and truck it in.
And then on B2, just a little curious as to, I see the increase. So first question, one, the current contract doesn't expire until May of 16/21. Why are we bidding this out almost a year ahead of time before the contract expires?
So we significantly burned through the value of the prior contract doing one repair to the boiler house at our powerhouse facility on the south side at 77th, our south shop, 77th bus garage, where we have one series of boilers that through steam pipes fund the heating for the entire campus. We had to replace the regulatory system on those to keep the temperatures on those boilers in line with the right pressure we needed to maintain for those temperatures. And that was a single $600,000 repair in and of itself beyond kind of what we do in-house staff. We also built capacity into this contract to accommodate for capital expenditures tied to the state capital program investment. Some of our most critical facility assets are actually our boiler systems. They are the lifeblood for maintaining these facilities, so we did build ability to release task orders to do upgrades to those individual systems as required.
So that's why no 3-year contracts, that's why one jumps from building, and then the other one, the loading today is 2.5 million. Is it because of those buildings?
Yes, sir. So we burned through the capacity on the initial contract with that one kind of expenditure, so we didn't make a full 3-year cycle, and we're coming back earlier. And then we tried to build in capacity, anticipating investments like that coming with the funding of the state capital program.
So let's say this is approved today, when will the new contract launch?
It's typically about 60 days to process signatures and get it out and stuff.
I'm just curious, considering that you had a contractor in with over a year left on their contract, and we didn't go back to just add money to it versus rebidding it out.
Yeah, we usually look at the trigger point of value. So based on kind of the trended expenditures on a monthly basis, when we hit a 50-point expenditure point in the contract or worse, we start procurement process, because the procurement process is competitive and it can be lengthy, especially if we get single bids and we have to go back out again. And we don't like to be without a contract either. We certainly don't like to be coming back constantly for extensions on contracts as well. So we try and plan for these. And so we do a pretty proactive look ahead of where we're seeing our expenditures to date turn to term versus expected expenditures coming. So.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 3 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alva Rosales.
Yes.
1 second, please. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was talking over here about something going on out there. Did you bring up item number J1 for discussion?
Yes. We just did J.
We did B1, B2, and we also did J1, I'm sorry. No?
Yeah, we did J1.
So there's no further questions on J1 then either?
No, there's no further questions after. Right.
So you do need a motion to
Okay. So we've got an existing motion right now that's been moved, seconded. Yes. Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
On the motion to approve the omnibus, Judge Chevrolet?
Yes.
Reverend Jakes? Chairman Silva?
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus of all the ordinances and all the contracts is approved with 6 yes votes.
Additionally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. I think it's before 10 o'clock though, right? So we got a few minutes before we start. Okay, just give me a few minutes then, thanks. excuse me, before we begin, is Mr. Strong here? Okay, oh, I'll be with you in just a few minutes, sir. Okay, I just want to make sure that you were here. Everybody, please, could securely close the door, silence your cell phones. And I think, Chairman, then, as soon as that door gets closed, we are ready. We got everybody else here? We're ready, sir.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for March 11, 2020. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, sir. Reverend Miller. Here. Ms. Alvarez.
Here.
Judge Chevrolet.
Here.
Reverend Jakes. Mr. Silva. Here. And Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board with 6 members, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The first order of business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each day, CTA connects nearly 1.5 million people a day to employment, educational, and a myriad of other opportunities and activities that enrich their lives. If you had a chance to watch the new WTTW documentary, Chicago by L, hosted by popular tour guide Jeffrey Bear, and if you haven't, I would certainly encourage you to watch it, you were reminded once again that CTA is also the backbone of our city. We are the thread that weaves through and connects the tapestry of neighborhoods that makes up a world-class city. But CTA could not function without the 11,000 dedicated and talented individuals that make up our family of employees. Today, it is my honor to recognize some of the best, the outstanding employees who deliver excellent customer service to our riders. Joining us today are employees that represent CTA's front lines, bus and rail operators, and customer service assistants. These employees are CTA's true day-to-day ambassadors, and they create a powerful first impression of our agency. The way these individuals treat our customers, answer their questions, and assist them with getting to their destination directly affects how people feel about the CTA. At this time, I would like to acknowledge these outstanding individuals and acknowledge their efforts, beginning first with 3 outstanding bus operators. And please stand when I call your name. Kimberly Dodd. Ms. Dodd works out of the 103rd Street Garage and has worked at CTA for more than 26 years. She is regularly commended by consumers for her professionalism and for always being careful around pedestrians, something that Karen truly appreciates. Next is Theodore Jackson. Mr. Jackson operates out of the 103rd Street Garage. Mr. Jackson has been with us for 7 years and has earned riders' commendations for his patience and his expertise driving through traffic. And finally, we have Alexa McCracklin from the North Park Garage. Mr. McCracklin has been with CTA for 5 years and 7 months. Mr. McCracklin's supervisor refers to him as, quote, a model employee who is informative and personable with every customer. Mr. McCracklin received a whopping 15 commendations in 2019 from riders he impressed with his cheerfulness, kindness, and especially the caring, courteous way he helps physically challenged riders. One customer said, and I quote, "He has the heart of an angel and the patience of Job." Thank you, Mr. McCracklin, and please keep doing what you're doing. At this point, the 3 of you can sit. Thank you. I should state the obvious at this point by indicating that being a CTA bus driver is a very challenging job. It is a job that I have readily admitted to other bus operators that I have met, one that I personally know I could not do. And I mean that. These operators have an awesome responsibility of navigating a large vehicle through frequently difficult traffic and weather conditions. And in addition to being a bus operator, these employees are also most often impromptu tour guides, traffic reporters, and more, treating all customers with grace, patience, and kindness. And so it's with that acknowledgement that I recognize not only the great job that they're doing, but the great job they do with very difficult and complicated responsibilities. So once again, thank you very much for what you have done. Next, I'd like to congratulate the following remarkable rail operations customer service employees who have consistently gone above and beyond their duties to provide our customers with excellent service. The following employees have received multiple commendations in 2019, and please stand when your name is called. Darlene Jefferson. Ms. Jefferson is a customer assistant who works out of the Rosemont station. She has worked for CTA for 6 years and 7 months, and customers commend her for always greeting them with a smile and being extremely helpful. Alan Kobich. Alan is a customer service representative, also at the Rosemont station. I guess that's a very popular station for us. And a CTA employee for almost 24 years. Customers commend him for his courteousness and professionalism, and one customer remarked, and I quote, "Al's warm, cordial greeting in the morning actually brightens my day and makes me want to go to work." The third person who isn't able to join us today is Lakeisha Lowe. Ms. Lowe is also a customer assistant working out of Howard Station and has worked at CTA for 7 years and also earns rave reviews from her riders. As president of CTA, I want each of you to know that we are proud of the way you represent this organization. All 6 of you are an impressive reflection of CTA's value and mission. Once again, let's give them all a round of applause. On behalf of Chairman Peterson, the board, and myself, as well as our entire CTA family, I want to thank you for your service and your commitment to the CTA. And with that, I'd like for you to invite you up here so we can take a picture with you and the rest of the board. Smile. And here we go, bigger smile. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next order of business is public comment. Greg?
Yes, sir, we have one public comment speaker, Mr. Bob Strong. If you would like to step up to the presenter's table and just please speak into the microphone.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We have smiles on our faces. We're all happy on a great Wednesday morning. I don't know if I should be here, but I wanted to be here because of everything that's going around with the coronavirus and things of that nature. But I wanted to be at the board meeting last month, and I wasn't able to make it, but I was compelled to get here today. And I just want to share a few things. I'm a red line rider, okay? But I'm an original green line rider from Jackson Park, which is Stony Island, all the way to Howard Street. Living at 62nd and King Drive, by the rail yard at 61st and 62nd and Calumet, hearing all the side rail pressure of the train that was going around the curve at 63rd and Calumet, or leaving at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, going to get my education all the way on the north side at Sin High School at Bryn Mawr, just to make a 7 o'clock class. Those are the things that were most important to me growing up, using CTA, public transportation, rail transportation. As a former employee of the National Safety Council and with my training on being a lifelong rider of the Chicago Transit Authority, I am qualified to speak on what I bring before this board. I have been in attendance at these meetings and finally need to share some concerns with you that I feel would possibly make the rail transit experience on the Red Line just a little better. I'm referring to the 95th Street terminal, and one of the concerns I have is about the cleaning of the train cars. Individuals that are tasked with keeping our cars clean, I have noticed that they are not doing the job in a consistent manner. The broom sits alongside, not moving, the water's dirty, and not being changed, and not being used. Sitting in the northernmost cubicle on the platform, conversing, laughter, all other kind of things, not doing the job. You just can't peek through the door. That's not sufficient. You can't see what is in the cab area. I say let's get it right. Number 2, terminal entry. In the late evening, trains departing 87th Street southbound being delayed entry into the 95th Street station, not because of signal clearance, but because being told there's not enough personnel to pull the trains that sit in the west pocket into the yard, can't be moved, delaying myself and others access to their continued transfer routes or missing that last bus. Bus drivers somehow show no empathy based on delays created by the rail component. Your transfers have run out. Pay another fare or you can't ride. Let's get it right. Outside heating, I'm going to be brief. I've taken pictures of the fixtures that provide heating, and it's not right. Not to say that I'm laying any blame, but those fixtures have an element, a heating element. But I am intrigued to why I am not getting warm. It's a race to push the reset button as soon as they go off. But voila, I looked up, past the lamp, and what I noticed was that the metal fixtures that reflect the lamps are dirty and look like they had not been cleaned in a minute. Those fixtures should reflect heat downward, and they are not. Also, the added cost these fixtures bring in for those long periods should be a concern to CTA. The new terminal at 95th Street, it feels real good under those heat lamps. I mean, the heat just comes right through my body. And I enjoy that. I appreciate it. But for the riders that are on the Red Line, 35th Street, 47th Street, 55th, those fixtures need to be cleaned. And I know this is the end of the season, but I just wanted to share my concerns, and these are just a few. I say let's get it right. I care about my CTA, and I'm concerned. Let's keep trying to make it comfortable for the riders. And please, for the handicapped like myself at the 95th Street terminal on the north end, one escalator should go up and one escalator should go down. Because when that elevator is not working,
it's a deterrent for me to walk down those stairs having back surgery. Okay? So what I'm saying is, figure it out. One escalator goes up, one goes down on the north end of the terminal. On the south end of the terminal, they just got that one escalator fixed, and it goes downward. Okay? I'm sorry, it comes upward. So when that elevator is not working on the north end, you've got two escalators going upward from the platform. I think one should go down and one should come up. That's just my opinion. And I say thank you for letting me speak before you all today.
No,
I'm happy.
yeah.
This is my first time. I'm excited. I love my CTA. Trust me. You can ask me any questions you want, and I can give you history.
Well, it's not so much a question, but just
Okay.
a thank you. Thank you for one, being a CTA rider. I mean, you kind of went through memory lane in terms
Yeah.
of getting on the train early, riding an hour just to get to school, and you've continued to be a great transit advocate, and we're glad that you showed up. I'm going to ask Dorval to connect you with someone. Here's what I would hope you would do. I think you have Greg's number.
Yes, sir.
If you don't see a change, don't hesitate to come back and let us know. I mean,
Okay.
the things that you're talking about are not things that we should be able to do, like cleaning the lamps so that the heat is shining down, coming down on our passengers. We'll work through the manpower issue in terms of the train entry into the West Yard, because we shouldn't have our customers missing a bus because of something that's taking place on our part. So again,
Sure.
I know Dover's going to have you talk with someone, but again, from the board's perspective, you've got Greg's number. If you don't see things getting better, please don't hesitate to come back, call Greg, because Greg has the ability to get messages to the entire board. But thank you for your ridership, and more importantly, thank you for coming down this morning and sharing your concerns with us.
Thank you so very much. Once again, thank you all.
So before you leave, I'm going to have you meet with Don Bonds, who is our chief transit operator. Don is right over here, and he's going to get your information and follow up with you on your concerns. Okay? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. And Chairman Peterson, that concludes the public comment section of today's meeting.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is the approval of the February 10th, 2020 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. Any comments? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of February the 10th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Abstain?
That's right. Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding that there will be executive session today, Karen.
Yes, Chairman, we will have a short executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, Subparagraph 11 of the Open Meetings Act.
Thanks, Karen. I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by counsel.
So moved. I'll second.
And seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
All right, thank you.
Would everybody please be seated? And if security could close the door. We're going to start in a few minutes. Everybody remember to silence your cell phones. And we'll start up in just a few minutes.
I now have a motion to return to the open meeting section of today's regular transit board meeting.
So moved. Second.
And seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with six yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is board matters. It is my understanding, Greg, that there are no board matters today.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you. Our next order of business is Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met early this morning. The committee reviewed the finance report and approved the February 2020 committee minutes. The committee reviewed the following four ordinances. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2020. An ordinance authorizing the execution of a rider for a license agreement with Cardtronics USA Inc. An ordinance authorizing a permanent discounted rate at the authorities Cumberland and Rosemont Park and Rides. An ordinance approving the authorities 2016-2018 Title VI Program Triennial Report and revised Chicago Transit Authority service standards and policies, and authorizing submittal to the Federal Transit Administration. The committee also reviewed three contract award recommendations. The committee approved the four ordinance and the three contracts, placed all of them on the omnibus for approval, and recommended board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
Second.
Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice. Judge Chevrolet.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is the construction report. Bill, Chris, and Juan.
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer, and with me today is
Chris Bouchel, your RPM Chief.
Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs.
So we'll begin today where we normally do with our East Lake, Milwaukee, Illinois substation upgrade. At this point, I'm happy to report that the project was substantially complete on March 2nd ahead of schedule. Since last time we met, they finished installation of the duct bank and connections to the elevated structure, which we've been showing you kind of in process over the last couple months. So here is the final kind of trench work into ultimately a riser, this concrete riser that is formed on the left picture here, that takes the cables from the substation itself to the elevated structure and makes that connection point. And here you can see them forming the second riser that was required. So that's a big metal form that they use, that they then they have rebar in there. They use that to then pour the concrete in and set it in place. And then this is the completed courtyard, fully restored. I've shown you over the month a big hole and various things going on in the big hole, but here it is fully filled in at this point. And then the restored concrete And one of the last aspects of the project was, so throughout commissioning of this big electrical grade equipment, we commission every individual piece in the factory. We then commission those pieces before they go in service in the substation itself as individual pieces. But the last piece we do is we actually commission the entire system and check the fail safes once it's fully installed as a system. It's called short circuit testing. So we create a fault. We mimic a fault on the railroad to make sure that all the breakers and all the pieces respond correctly in the safety modes they're supposed to be set in. So each one of the track sections of power that we feed out of that is then tested and validated in this test. My next project is our Jefferson Park O'Hare Signals project, which remains on budget and on schedule. Most of the field activity at this point has been focused around the upcoming installation of the Jefferson Park Relay House. This first picture shows you the installation of the AC feeds that actually will provide the power for the relay house once it's installed in place. As well as they have started to install and connect field components. So I showed you during the line cuts, they did the underground work, they set pedestals for these items, and now as that house is pending installation in the upcoming months, they've started to install the actual pieces of signal equipment that will be cut over with the installation of that house and wiring them up. So when the house comes, they make those connections to the house and can test and commission it in the field. They are advancing the commissioning and building of those houses for both Jefferson Park, Foster, and Central at this point.
So, Bill, just a question. I know we've had some weather, but how does it, the junction box and the I-line, so how do they hold up? Do you do anything when, let's say, the temperature gets below freezing, or, is there anything that we have to do in terms of?
So prior to winter, a few months back, I showed you some pictures of all the underground work they put in, all the cable temp ups. They'd done a bunch of hardening for winter where they capped them, they sealed them off so that water and ice and stuff couldn't get into those lines. These are kind of becoming more pending installations, these systems are there. They're designed, they're typically marine grade stainless steel. It's like a marine grade level 3, so it's the salt exposure, the water exposure doesn't rot the boxes. These are pieces of equipment are meant to operate in these environments with the extreme temperatures. And the systems go through a certification period on our live railroad before any system we use has to be pre-certified before we authorize it to be used on any contract. So most of this and the bonds have been used for years, and so they're a very robust kind of period. So my next project is our Grand Chicago Division renovation project. This remains on budget and on schedule and quickly coming to a conclusion. We had a substantial completion date of mid-March for this project, which Chicago and Division are intended to complete on that date. Grand, we've given an extension to mid-April, in part tied to two aspects that we've asked them to include in the project. One is reopening one of the existing stairwells that historically has been capped there on the southwest corner, as well as we reprogrammed how they were doing the work at platform level and minimized the back rides at that station. We had to give them a little extra time on the back end to make up for that. So we were doing most of the other stations, we were doing a dedicated 24-day back ride for pouring of the concrete slab and allowing work to occur. And so our passengers had to back ride that station one direction or the other for that period. Here we were able to bring it down to 3 days, just set the concrete and then go to nightly closures, which allowed our customers a better experience during construction and dealing with some of the capacity at that station. So here's some of the work that's been going on. So this is the completed head house or entrance to the subway at Chicago Station. There's 3 ultimately going in here. This is the first one that's been installed. The next picture shows you the lighting installation in process at Grand. So they're adding a series of rows of LED lights on the exterior edge of the platform there. And this next picture shows you that completed lit up lighting at Chicago that they were installing in the other one. Is significantly bright. It's very noticeable as you ride up on the train. You can tell the difference between these stations. And here is one of the head houses being delivered and installed at Division. There's 2 ultimately going in there.
Bill, it's sort of an off topic. Anything going on with the 4G, 5G? How is that operating?
So that's handled typically out of our technology department. I can tell you from a rider experience, the 4G works very well. Yeah. So it was probably about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we did a full upgrade to 4G. Put us as the premier transit company that had 4G in our wireless. We were one of the first ever to have wireless in our subways to begin with. 5G technology is still emerging out there. Not all vendors are on the 5G platform yet, so we would be ready for a full system cutover because we would preclude certain vendors. And our goal is to have kind of an open system that all vendors can function on. So.
You may also recall that the way in which we set up the 4G program is that the providers themselves actually paid the cost for installation of the equipment to make that work, and so I think that we're still a ways away from them wanting to deal with putting it into our subway system. 5G, unlike 4G, has a very low range of transmission, and so the cost of putting it in like a subway system is much more expensive than what it was for the 4G equipment. So certainly, something we'll be interested in exploring in the future, but at this point, we don't have any immediate plans to upgrade to 5G.
I would also remind the board that we did open up a year ago Wi-Fi in our subways, in the State and Dearborn subways, available to our customers, a free Wi-Fi network. So. My next project is our Logan Square Station Repair Project, which is substantially complete at this point. For all the major infrastructure work going on there, there will be a series of kind of photos. As I mentioned last month, we're doing 2 elevator rehabs as part of this station project. We're doing through a separate contract to facilitate them and keep them, ahead of for cost and for really schedule implications, as well as there's some roofing work that's on the punch list that's seasonal, kind of depending on when the weather breaks. So. Here is the new LED lighting in the station mezzanines. Again, very similar to what you saw when we brought forward Belmont. It's kind of our standard subway lighting fixture for this type of use right now. Opens up, brightens it, certainly makes it feel cleaner and safer. And here is one of the mezzanines. This is the Spalding entrance. And it's buried up in the high bays there and kind of shadows down. I'm sorry, now you did advance. JP, did you want to provide final DVDs on Elmy?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Going back to the East Lake, Milwaukee, Illinois substation project, to close out the DBE report, we assessed a 20% goal. The contractor committed to 28.53%, and they're on track to meet that commitment. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, my last project is our electric bus charging stations. So I've shown you kind of the final installations of the infrastructure at Chicago and Chicago-Austin over the last couple months, and this is the technology that's been being kind of commissioned and built in the factory. So this is one of the high masts for the fast chargers. This ultimately gets installed and hangs over the bus turnaround itself, and a bus would pull up to it. And in this next picture, you can see the pantograph, which then comes down and mates to the top of the bus and charges the bus as it stands for a 5 to 10 minute turnaround period and gives it back a full charge. And this last picture gives you some sense of how incredibly sizable this piece of equipment is. So it has been through commissioning, and these masts are being finalized and will be shipping to site in the upcoming weeks for installation. And then there's another piece of technology that ultimately is the cabinet that connects from the power in the substation building that I've shown you and this mast and converts it to make it work for the, it's the converter box of that technology. So that's in fabrication and is currently being tested. So over to Chris.
Thank you, Bill. So the RPM Phase 1 design build contract remains on time and on budget. If I could, I want to just turn a couple slides here. I have talked before about one of the first and major efforts of the project at this point, which is design. It is a huge project and a huge design effort, kind of emphasizing a little bit this month design in the design build equation. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted to bring something that sort of shows once we've designed each of the subsystems, the electrical, the signal, the structural, technology and expertise at this point enable us to kind of put all those together at this point and be able to look to see how they're operating together. Are they in the same spaces? Are those spaces coordinated? The complexity of the system and the complexity of the effort sort of dictates that level of coordination. So I wanted to show something. It's not really a rendering. This is really just a tool that the designers are using to coordinate all the various subsystems. And just to give the board an idea of the complexity behind the efforts associated with design on a project of this scale and magnitude. I mean, we do it on every project, even some of the smaller ones like the bus charging stations, but we don't always get the opportunity to use this kind of technology because the projects are a little smaller, the design budgets are more focused and efficient. But here, given the magnitude of the effort, these tools really become essential for us. So I just wanted to show you, this is in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. It's part of the segmented box girder construction. You can see those box girders underneath the kind of voids or holes under which there's various things, including structural components and systems components that are running in those voids. Just to give you an idea of this tool and the level of effort associated with design. If we turn to the next slide, one element that occurs in a design build contract, or in design, a follow-up to design, if you will, is the contractor starts to procure various components. One of the things they would procure to advance this project would be the various relay houses and other things that you've seen us install throughout the years. Bill has shown you some slides recently of Jefferson Park, of the houses a little more complete with all the electrical stuff in it. But getting that house built, I mean, these are substantial houses that we put on the right-of-way. Just making sure that's watertight, making sure that it's sized properly. Those are all elements that get designed, and then subsequently the contractor follows up very close on the heels of that design effort to make sure these houses are procured. That's why we sort of begin to see that the design build contract operates a little quicker, because they don't have to complete everything before they start to order parts and they mobilize and do various things. But this relay house is going to be one of the first houses we install on the area of Montrose. I just wanted to give you a picture and an idea that as that design completes, we go ahead and procure these houses, or the contractor does, for installation, and then for the signal person to put all of the various computers and components into that house. So just again to give you an idea of how design winds out and works in the design build process. So you've seen these pictures before. We'll see them for a while, to be honest. The installation of the structure. We're drilling a large caisson here. As I said before, the deep foundations in this project go down between 60 and 90 feet. They form the basis of us building the various bridges and stations that we're going to do on this project. This is one of the largest caissons we're going to drill here. Or is it one of the larger ones we're drilling in the area of, it's on the Ravenswood branch, just to the, I guess, geographic west of, north and west of Belmont. I've talked before about Lawrence to Bryn Mawr and how the first thing, one of the big activities this year ahead of the actual construction of that bridge and those 4 stations, is the installation of 2 interlockings. Those interlockings, much like the design picture you saw with all those things that look like veins and tendons, these interlockings, both of them, the one at Montrose, the one up at Thorndale, have a lot of different power and signal and communication that goes under them. Here we're constructing the duct bank between the 2 tracks that will enable us to put all of that cabling and all of that, all the cabling and all the duct work that encases the cabling in. So you can see if we progress this. This is a vibratory pile driver. It's putting those big sheets in the ground. It vibrates them down in. We go to the next slide. You can see once those sheets are in, then we sort of start digging that trench. And the reason we put those sheets in there is because we're running service on either of the 2 tracks, and we need to keep that those tracks in place. I mean, it does also keep the workers who are in those trenches safe, but there are other cheaper ways to do that as a general rule. This is really done to keep the structure stable so that we can run service on either side. Those are tracks 2 and 3, the north and southbound tracks for the red line you see on either side of that excavator. Here's a little bit more of the trench developed. This again is Thorndale, and it's the ductwork that goes basically under or around the interlocking that we're putting up there so we can start to build the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. RPM advanced contracts, demolition is complete and closeout, if not closed. The utility is on budget but tight to schedule, but not tight in a way that I think will impact the larger design build. We're really in the phase of the utility work where we're running new cabling in existing duct banks that we've done to get rid of various poles and other infrastructure. So you're seeing us put various pieces of equipment in that are associated with that cabling. You can go to the next picture. One of these boxes or pedestals that you might see in your neighborhood. These are generally associated with communications technology. They're part of the ability to run distributed communications to various residences. As we do new infrastructure from poles and smaller ones, they put them on the ground. They put more infrastructure in them that enables stuff like 5G to happen in some of the neighborhoods. So the various things that happen out here are part of the utility relocation, but they're getting to the end of it. They're really just pulling cable. They're installing various pieces of equipment on top of the heavy construction that we've already completed. So in outreach, we've also been busy this past month. We coordinated a lot of utility work, speaking of that, to get done, and we could open up Argyle, or at least remove any of there was some trenching and other things going on out there. We were able to get that squared away so that we could participate in the Argyle Lunar New Year Parade, which was a great success. We've also been briefing people. Talking about these interlockings. They are big pieces of construction, and we've been spending time briefing the various aldermen in the area about, meeting with them, making sure we're getting information into their newsletters and other things about the construction. So we've met with Alderman Kappelman, Alderman Osterman, other impacted aldermen. We've been meeting with the Chambers of Commerce to give them the same basic message, Lawrence as well. Montrose, going block by block, a little bit more incrementally there, just so that we can make sure that if we're working right next to your house, you're aware of what is happening. So that's kind of the thrust of the communication around construction. On workforce and SBE, I'll turn it over to Juan Pablo.
Thank you, Chris. In February, we launched the CTA Elevating Future Scholarship Fund. This was a $250,000 commitment that Walsh Floor made for CPS students pursuing STEM degrees from economically disadvantaged areas. So we've received over 30 applications for this scholarship, so they'll be under review for award. We also participated in the City of Chicago Construction Summit. We worked with the Department of Procurement Services to add a workforce component, which also added 3 panels to focus on workforce, 2 for individuals who are interested in pursuing careers in construction, and 1 for contractors to know how to navigate all the workforce goals that each of the city agencies have. On the SBE DBE side, we had another session of our CTA Building Small Businesses program. Since our initial session in September of last year, we've had 61 firms participate. So we have a number of firms pursuing funding for either working capital or equipment purchases. And then we have firms that are going to start cohort and back office support training shortly. And last, we participated in Walsh's owner spotlight presentation during one of their lunch and learn sessions, where they talked about opportunities on RPM, and we were able to speak about our programs that support small businesses, like building small businesses and small business education training.
So I've got a question, not so much in terms of the contractor showing up. Of course, this is more around the community meetings. We're still seeing a lot of turnout by residents at these informational meetings with the alderman. You mentioned Capital, and then you also mentioned Harry Austin. Still, crowds died down a little bit, or you're still seeing a lot of community turnout interest.
Still seeing a lot of community interest. We've had good attendance at all of our events. We're also making extra special effort just because we get good attendance. We're trying to reach beyond that, using social media, email blasts, other sorts of tools that we have at our disposal to, I guess, not be satisfied with good turnout at an individual meeting. But yeah, interest runs high, I would say, particularly among the business community relative to the impacts of construction, but residential as well. Probably a little bit higher on people, again, who are kind of directly adjacent to the construction, maybe more than the average rider, but we're trying to reach out to that average rider too and make sure that they understand, this project has a start, it has an end, it has impacts during construction. So we're not satisfied even when we do just have good turnout at a public meeting.
Any additional questions for Bill, Chris, or Mark?
Chris, I have a question just for understanding. So, let's say there's a major emergency or something. With regards to the 3D design models that are being built, when we finalize everything, we still have those, and any additions that are added on. For example, if we have to find, something within that station or whatever, we
Yeah, I mean, we have a web-based project management system that captures a lot of information out of what's generally considered an EDS or electronic data EDS EDMS. There we go. So that's kind of the systems that the designers use. As it becomes a construction effort, it becomes part of our web-based project management system and the various records that would entail being put into that. And then subsequently, we're also, I think, at the forefront of transit asset management, and we're identifying various things as assets. And those kind of are enhanced then in the project management system and come out of it and are available for people who are maintaining these systems. So there is a transfer of information from designs like this to the construction system that we're using, the project management system, and then subsequently on the back end for pieces of information that can be used by maintenance. Is it all 3D? Is that particular tool, there's several 3D tools that are being used for different reasons. Whether that one comes through or whether that information comes through in a slightly different format, it's TBD a little bit in a project this big, but I can tell you that the information will come through and that there are contract requirements around that coming through and ultimately being available to use for maintenance. So we spend a fair amount of time and effort thinking about that.
So that it's all current and easily, readily available.
Yeah, I mean, in any case, Director, the best information we have about a system is typically around places where we've done either a complete reconstruction like this or a major rehab. We typically make sure that section of the railroad or the bus garage has updated data that comes through as the result of the construction process and is ultimately turned over and available for various people to use either.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. The next agenda item is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
It's my understanding that President Carter would like to say a few words.
President Carter?
Thank you, Chairman. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few weeks, you're probably aware of the fact that the entire country has been dealing with the coronavirus and the impact that it may be having on our daily lives. I thought I would take a couple of minutes here just to update you on what CTA has been doing around that issue and the work that we're doing and will continue to be doing as we move forward to address the coronavirus and the impact it may have on public transportation. First and foremost, I think it's important to note that CTA has been working very closely with the Chicago Department of Public Health and the Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications to ensure that we're taking appropriate steps in light of the recent events. This includes staying closely coordinated with the city and our sister agencies in our approach to the coronavirus. We have also stayed in contact with our transit peers and colleagues around the country and have been sharing best practices while staying abreast of what other transit agencies are doing, and in light of this rapidly evolving situation, making sure that we're constantly reviewing and updating and modifying our practices to reflect the combined knowledge of the entire industry in terms of their response to the coronavirus. And I would point out that in my conversations with my peers around the country, we're all sort of working through this at the same time. No one really has a plan to really, deal with this in advance. And I think we're all learning as we go along in terms of what are good practices, what things we can improve and modify from our existing practices to really be supportive of the impact that this may be having on our services. Internally here at CTA, I'm also making sure that CTA employees are being kept informed about the latest guidance that we've gotten from both local and national health agencies, including specifically the latest guidance that Chicago Department of Public Health has provided. And I will take this opportunity to remind all of us of a couple of the messages that we've gotten from the Department of Public Health. One, frequently wash your hands. Two, cover your mouth if you're coughing or sneezing. And I think most importantly, if you are sick, stay at home. We also have conveyed to our employees the actions outlined by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, regarding the actions that they should take if they've recently traveled to countries that have been identified as high risk based on CDC's geographic risk assessment. In addition, the CTA management team is assessing our emergency contingency plans and ensuring that we are up to date with all of our planning and reviewing and monitoring our inventory supply levels to ensure that we have sufficient inventory for those critical supplies that we may need as we move forward under this scenario. Externally, we also have been focusing on informing our customers of the process by which we clean and sanitize our vehicles and facilities. As you know, CTA has a regular cleaning and sanitizing regimen, and we've been informing the public about those efforts on a newly created coronavirus website, which I believe Brian is going to put up on the screen here. This site provides information regarding our daily cleanings of vehicles and facilities, and it also reiterates to the public the guidance that we've been getting from the Chicago Department of Public Health. It is our intention to update this site as we get additional information that we need to convey to the public about the steps that we're taking to mitigate any potential concern that they may have around the virus and its impact on their ability to ride CTA. What you see here are pictures of various CTA employees doing the various cleanings that we do on a daily basis to our buses and rail cars, as well as the cleanings that we do in our stations, where we go through and we actually wipe down all of the surfaces that tend to be the public tends to come in contact with, particularly high volume surfaces like our fare equipment, the handrails on our escalators and things like that. While we recognize that these steps don't necessarily guarantee any contact with bacteria or the virus, we feel that these are all appropriate steps consistent with what our peers are doing to basically try to address and mitigate as best we can those concerns about the possibility of coming in contact with the virus when riding public transit. As I indicated to you in the beginning, this is a ever-evolving situation. It is very fluid. We are trying to be both nimble and flexible in terms of our response and reaction to all of this. Many of you are probably dealing with similar conversations in your respective areas of responsibility in your private life. And I want everyone to understand that our number one priority here is the safety of both our employees and our customers to ensure that they are protected as best as possible when riding public transportation. And we're going to continue to make sure that we stay very closely aligned with the public health officials in terms of the advice that we give and the communication that we put out to both our employees and our customers as we continue to deal with this ever-evolving threat. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
I don't have any questions because, we talk often. But I would say just because, in light of the fact that we only meet every month and you're saying that this is evolving every day, just keeping the board up to speed on what's going on. We learn more, we find out more about this. I just think getting into that, I know Brad and you work great about keeping the board up to speed. But in light of the fact that we're only looking until April, something we do this week, next week, let's continue to keep.
Absolutely. I know that we've been doing or making sure that we're passing forward to you any communications we're sending out to our employees and our customers. We will continue to do that, and if we get any new development or any major shift in our policy or practices, we'll make sure that we get the information out to the board.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad that Mr. Public Speaker is still here for this presentation because you addressed these kinds of things in your presentation to the board, and I thought that it would be very valuable and informative for you to stay here and see how proactive we're being with this issue. And also, a few board meetings ago, we talked about the cloth seats and how we're converting those to all plastic seats.
Yes.
And that's going to be a big step in keeping the system clean. It's a lot easier to wipe down plastic surfaces than it is to vacuum or shampoo cloth surfaces. So all of those things kind of go to your observations and what we've been working on here. And I hope this enlightened everybody in this room. And thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you. I would point out that I don't want to profess that we're perfect. And we quite honestly, we do welcome feedback from our customers because there's always room for improvement. And I've already made notes on the comments that we got this morning, and we'll be following up with my team to make sure that we're addressing those. But yes, the practices that we have in place are considered best practices by our industry. In fact, many of our peers, as part of the ramping up of their cleaning and sanitizing rituals, are really ramping them up to the level that we currently operate now. But clearly, having said that, as you know, I have a system that's over 125 years old, and it takes a lot of maintenance to keep it clean. And I have a lot of employees who work very diligently to try to accomplish that as best as we can.
There are no other questions for Doldrum and no further business to come before the board. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.